He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the major blind stealers in his hands. He's got the first-time offenders in his hands. He's got the licensed real estate agents in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the young dermatologist in his hands. He's got the bank loan officers in his hands. He's got the bad motorcycles.
Good evening, colleagues around town, around the globe. It's nice to be with you tonight, wherever you are and whatever time it is where you are. This is Paul Colby, your host for another astounding episode of our little get-togethers here on Thursday nights, where we talk about what is going on and going down around here and around the world. So tonight, I'll be talking with three of my crack investigators, and we're going to be looking at what just went down at those conventions, the Republican convention and the Democratic convention. And we'll be asking what comes next as we head into the official election season. And if we have time, we'll take a look at how the economy is responding to the present developments and what it's likely to do in the immediate future. I'm not alone for this discussion. I'm getting used to having some of my colleagues aboard who do a lot of the grunt work for me. And they rarely grunt, by the way. They speak a lot of languages, and grunting is not one of them. But by the way, at the request of my producer, we are going to conduct tonight's show in Esperanto. Aren't we, folks?
I'm not in Esperanto, boss. I'm in dire straits.
I'm in constant motion.
And I'm in a state of denial.
Well, okay, so we'll be, I guess we'll be using plain English, the way it's spoken somewhere around here. And my English speakers tonight, if I can just introduce them one at a time. I have with me tonight Hanky Panky. Hank is a seasoned veteran when it comes to reporting on the undercurrents in the news. He's a method acting director of the Center for the Study of Ordinary Events at the East Western College of Hidden Biology in Scottsdale, Arizona. I think I know where that is. It's near the golf courses. Anyway, his new book, Love in the Time of Collusion, is upsetting monarchies and crime syndicates across the world these days. And Hank, before we get started here, I just wanted to ask you about these ordinary events that you used to teach and study. These days, we don't have many ordinary events. I wonder how that affects your work.
I would summarize it just by suggesting that I find things at the center really energize my lifestyle, of living on the edge, living ordinary, but extra.
That's it, always something extra. And I'll tell you, I know somebody who is living an extra fine life right now. That's Evangelical. She is the Lila Boom Professor of Internal Combustion Politics at the Papal Academy. That's, where the Pope is. The Papal Academy of Conditional Ethics in Washington, D.C. And in the spare time that she has, she's also a lecturer on polluted soil mechanics and new uses for soft drinks in developing countries. And sometimes she even talks about the history of the opposition to spare tires. And Eve, since I've got you here in person for one time, I had a burning question. People keep asking me because you study polluted soil mechanics. I just wonder, do people bring you their microbes and ask, what's going on here?
Yes, and what I end up doing with those is I take the polluted microbes and I sort them. and then I put them into, I have one of my old sewing kits that I use, and that way I can classify and label them. And now I've not gotten around to using them yet, but we'll see one of these days.
That's relatively fascinating. I mean, in a sense. And thank you for that insight. My last investigator who's aboard tonight is Lucy Goosey. Lou C, and what does that C stand for, Lou?
Well, it's an interesting story. When I was born, my parents gave me the middle name Charles, but when I got into my 20s, I had it legally changed to Chiseled because what can I say?
Oh, that's fascinating. You could be one of the new 6 faces on Mount Rushmore. Little joke there from last time we were together. Anyway, if you didn't know, Lou runs the Foundation for the Appreciation of Stomach Problems in Rochester, New York. And that doesn't mean just the stomach problems in Rochester. It means that's where the foundation is. And he's a leader of the Take Back Indifference campaign in several election battleground states for this summer. And he's best known for his role as an unarmed bicycle mechanic in the long-running TV show, what was it called? I Led 5 Lives. But it seemed like sometimes you were leading 6 or 7 there, Lou. Anyway, my investigators know how to dig deep beneath the cover stories these days and get at the real stories. You know that if you watch this show regularly. So what we bring you in the way of news is stuff you haven't heard anywhere else. And it's going to be like that tonight. We're going to first look at those conventions, the Democrats and the Republicans. Then we're going to look about 2 months down the road at the official campaign season, because now it's already Labor Day. And then we'll see what the economy is doing in response to all this. So let's talk about those Democrats. You know, coming into the convention, Joe Biden also had drama on his side in addition to old age. And some of that drama came with the announcement of his vice presidential candidate. And he wanted to stoke the interest of the people who are still undecided by making more announcements. So the first thing he did, and I think we've got a slide, he introduced a new White House gardener that he would be choosing. This gardener, don't we have a slide for that, Mr. Producer? Yes. The very famous, or at least around here where I'm from, the very famous Mr. Melvin Giles Jeter, who once wrote a book with Rose Gordon, is supposed to be the new White House gardener because he has an ability to communicate through flowers with extraterrestrial communities. And I think that's going to be a big part of the Democratic platform. Joe also named his choice for first dog. I don't know the name of the dog, but I understand from Lou, who has been checking this story, that this dog was actually invented by Tesla. So it must be a pretty old dog.
Actually, believe it or not, it's even older than Joe Biden and Donald Trump. It was, in fact, invented by Tesla, and it actually barks in 12 languages, if you can believe that. But the rumor is that my investigators are checking on it, that it actually contains both a recording and a tracking chip that's been implemented in the past few years.
Well, that's fascinating. We're going to have more to say about recording a little later, because that is top of the news cycle tonight. But while we're talking about the Democrats, the next thing that came up was Joe Biden's position on heat speech, because it's been pretty hot this summer. I'm not talking just about the political climate. I'm talking about the country, because I mean, half of California is on fire. Social media has been responding. As you can see in the slide here, Twitter, is set already to ban heat speech. It's bad enough for it to be this hot. It seems to be worse when they talk about it.
I think I have
and-
something to contribute here, boss. You know, not to be outdone, I've learned that the president is currently scouting nominees to run a ministry, U.S. Ministry of Half-Baked Ideas. And right now he's considering My Pillow Guy, the Muffin Man, Neverland's hydroxychloroquine, and a guy in Columbus named Bob.
Boy, things do happen fast around here, don't they? I mean, you didn't have that in your notes to me this morning, so that must be coming right down the pipeline here. And speaking of climates and coming down the pipeline, Biden is talking about going for the soul of America. He's been saying that for a long time, and he kind of named names. He said what he favors is an Al Green New Deal. As you can see on the slide there, he's proposing a new American energy diet, but I mean, who is not proposing that anymore these days? At the convention, I was looking forward to hearing AOC speak. I like hearing her speak, but she only spoke about, well, less than a minute. And the reason is they were going to give her a long time to talk about the radical left socialist program, but instead they decided to spend some of that time singing some of the popular socialist songs of today. I know you all like to hear we will wreck you. I mean, if you're at the basketball game or the base, I mean, wherever you are, they play that one. And I was really stirred by we shall overturn. They didn't, and you know what, in the lyrics, correct me if I'm wrong, they don't really say in that popular folk song what they're going to overturn, but I like the sentiment anyway. And
the Star Spangled Bunker was another one that I really enjoyed.
I enjoyed it, but
red glare, we don't have any air. Yeah, it's a really, really a rousing tune.
It was so today. I mean, those socialists, especially the radical socialists, are right on top of their game, I think.
There were some actual, some other cuts that actually landed on YouTube this past week as well, coming from the left. There was Cheer, He Loves You, yeah, yeah, yeah. And they're mining Beatles all the way. So they've got, you know, Hello, Goodbye, Curious, Ticket to Riot. And then on the other side, you've got folks like Kid Rock and Ted Nugent who are now pushing their angle from the right, like I Want to Hold Your Handgun, From Me, Dear Pool Boy, and of course,
I heard, oh yeah,
Twist and Shout.
I thought it was Twisted and Short. But maybe I heard that there's an alternate
That was the
take.
adult version, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
That was
right.
the Ron Jeremy news.
Right. Anyway, that's about, well, oh, the last thing I was going to say, there was a little bit of an uproar, rowdiness in the crowd when Biden started to explain his plan to destroy the suburbs. But he never finished, but I think Donald Trump picked up on it and he explained it. And speaking of Donald Trump, I guess we're talking about Republicans now. And the big deal at that convention, which was like the beginning of a new era of Unreality TV shows, the big theme of that was let's make America great again, as it says here in the slide. And I'm sure you got that idea if you saw Trump over and over and over and over and over and over again during the festivities there. There was a lot of talk. Well, I'll tell you what we were missing. First of all, there were several thousand subcontractors who sued Trump in the past who wanted to speak and say, hey, we decided this is our guy, you know, all debts are paid and this is our, but there were so many of them and they all wanted to speak so long. They said, no, we can't have any, we'd be choosing somebody. Now, and then the former candidate of the Vegetarian Party, he kept hearing Trump serve up red meat for his base, and he had to try it himself, and apparently he got hooked, and he came around and spoke at Trump's convention. I thought it was hilarious. And there were several black supporters who also got a chance to speak. I guess they were all auditioning for the one solo cabinet position that will be available for a black person. In any case, though, the Republicans did try to imitate the Democrats in having high quality entertainment. So, but it wasn't really high quality. They had performances by Steely Dan and the artist formerly known as Pence.
You know, and similarly, boss, I think they also had difficulty with the food sponsors. You know, considering the president's favorite cuisine, which is quite well known, I think they were down to Hamburger King, Taco Bell Bonds, What a Hamburger, and Dick in the Box, which is a subsidiary of Halliburton.
Oh yeah, those are very popular in the suburbs. Although, I guess if the suburbs are destroyed, then they'll have to move those downtown. Eve, you were telling me that you enjoyed one of the entertainers quite a lot, or I don't know if you entered.
I sure did. As someone who was welcomed with open arms and mouths and noses to the convention, I really enjoyed it was a a bluegrass punk band called the Benny Hillbillies. I thought it was great to see young people stepping up and really doing something with music, changing the face of music.
I've been to a couple of their shows, and you know, it seems like a lot of the people step up and then they step on each other. I guess
they sure do, boss. They do.
Their variation on punk music. Anyway, then we got down into the real meat and potatoes of this. There was a pseudoscientist, and I think we've got a slide for this too, who said that Trump was right about the pandemic all along, COVID-19, because the virus it can't or it won't go over walls or under them. So if we had built Trump's wall, we wouldn't have had any problem here. I mean, you know, like we've had for the last few months. Also, by the way, he kept saying that there would be a new vaccine soon. And I thought maybe he was just confused about vaccine, but it turns out I think he's looking for another new press secretary. You know, they all have a running time of approximately 90 days, you know, and then after they've kicked the tires, then they get kicked off the bus. Anyway, there was a lot of discussion at this Republican convention about how Donald Trump is almost just like Abraham Lincoln. It's like they're cut from the same cloth. Some of these things are obviously true. They are both bipeds, and they were born within 1,000 miles of each other. I didn't realize that they were both carnivorous, but apparently Abe ate some version of hamburgers back in his day. Neither of them played the French horn. I mean, you guys, you studied presidential candidates. Have we ever seen anything like this before? Anybody this close to Abraham Lincoln?
Well, they are both tall. I understand. They're both quite tall.
But that's just another thing in favor of Trump and Lincoln. I can't think of any other case where we've had somebody just so much like the grandfather of the Republican Party. But anyway, I'm sure they'll talk more about that. This is
boss, it occurred to, I am sorry, I just had this inspiration. It occurs to me that our president of the Civil War was famous for his Lincoln Logs, and this president is famous for his observations about toilet difficulties, flushing.
That's yet another. I mean, how it lines up. I mean, if he came back, I wonder if we could smell the two of them and see if they smell the same. I know, but we'll get into that a little later when we talk about genetic engineering, if we do, and I'm not sure we will. But speaking of Lincoln and talking like Lincoln, there's a book out right now. I have to run get a copy because they're selling out. It's a book, Talk Like Trump, and the whole point of this book, it's 30 days to a less powerful vocabulary. If you want to be like Donald Trump, you've got to talk. I mean, you don't just walk your talk, you have to talk your walk, because that's one of the things that we know he can do. I have heard that there is a companion volume of all the words that are not in this Talk Like Trump, because that's really only about 20 pages long, right?
That's true, boss. My sources tell me that. But what's interesting is I've actually been offered the job to write a pronunciation guide as a companion book. So you have to learn to say certain words properly, like China. And fake news. So it's very important. If you want to be a great speaker like Trump, you have to carry that pronunciation through.
I guess there's an opportunity for someone to write a book that explains the difference between, say, a subject and an object, or a verb and an adverb. You know, that, I mean, there's a lot of territory there.
And one of the wonderful things about what makes him such an effective speaker is that he just kind of barrels through. He picks a topic and he doesn't worry so much about perfect grammar or being factually correct or any of those minor things. He just keeps talking, and that's why he's such an effective communicator.
Oh, that he is. And what he's communicating these days is mostly a law and order appeal. Boy, we have so much to cover here. I'm going to try to go faster, but we've got a slide there. He's claiming that 65% of the population is a lawless mob, you know, so forth. This has prompted a special on Netflix. I watched a little of it. It's the Puppet Masters tournament. It comes from 5 or 6 key battleground states. And I guess the whole point of this drama, which goes on for several more episodes, is to find out if Joe is going to crack under the pressure. Because basically what Trump is saying, you know, about everything here, escalating talk about Antifa and all of these riots that are going on, that Joe won't, you know, he won't stand apart from them. He's excusing all of these people. And I know all of you have been on the ground doing research because of all of this talk about Antifa. For example,
boss, I want to interject. So you did touch on Netflix, which I wanted to back up. You know, I did hear that subscribers are feeling pretty jerked around by Netflix, who have been encouraging people to swipe left every night for their digital access.
Oh my goodness. That is political. No wonder we have these heat speech problems, because they're turning up the temperature all the time.
Well, the Netflix problem, most people feel, is pretty underhanded.
I think so. Yeah. I used to be underhanded, but Lou taught me how to be right-handed, you know, and now I'm ambidextrous. So I've been offered a job at Netflix, but I'm not going to take it. I'm home with you guys. This is where I belong. And speaking of where I belong, I don't belong in Portland. I know, for example, Amanda, this person who wrote a book, Amanda something, says Antifa was at the airport in Portland. But Eve, you went there. You sent me a picture right there in the Portland airport. You can see that sign. I am amazed.
Yeah, the banner, they're just welcoming the domestic terrorists, and I do commend them on their uniformity in dress. I think they all look very snappy, but you just never know by looking at them.
You can't really tell how old they are either. It's sort of like that dog Tesla invented. I mean, it could be 100 years old, these guys.
And they may all
Anyway.
be recording devices. It's true.
And they are. Actually, there's Trump owns a company in North Vietnam that actually surreptitiously is near uniforms modeled after the North Vietnamese pajamas that they wore during the Vietnam War. But boss, I can also confirm that there is in fact a separate waiting area in Portland Airport for Antifa people, so they can go.
But yeah, I think you sent me a picture of that. We've got as for thugs and looters and arsonists. Boy, they better have their fake ID ready, huh? Did you see any of them hanging around when you took that picture?
Oh, definitely. They have very, very elaborate fake IDs as well. They some of them, in fact, are posing as non-human species in their fake ID. So
that's fascinating.
That's impossible for the FBI to track. I mean, because the FBI, as you know, has chips in all of us to track us, but they do not have chips in our pets. So if you have an ID with a picture of your pet, you're completely untraceable to the FBI.
That's fascinating. Now, Hank, I understand you actually got out on the tarmac there where thugs were supposedly boarding a plane. And we don't have the audio, but I think they were saying all the boys are on board. And then he says something about the ones in the uniforms are band members. So
yeah, well, they're doing it under the banner of Bones Thugs in Harmony, if you're familiar with that group. So they're touring actually with rock legends Paper Scissor as a combo sort of rack rock ensemble.
that explains a lot, because I heard that Bruno Venus was just starting out on a tour to support the campaign of Kanye West, and they had a plane like that and uniforms like that. So that's, once again, it's starting to make sense, because you people are on the ground and you send me everything that we can find here. You know, with all this talk about law and order and things that, well, things are like the Nixon years and different, because then we had a silent minority. Now we have a well-armed, really noisy minority. So I guess it comes around, it goes around. But after that convention, a lot of people, you know, because Trump spoke from the White House, clear violation of some of our nation's laws. And so a lot of people asked him, mostly reporters, but just ordinary people too. They said, what about the Hatch Act? And the first thing that Trump said was, I told you everything in the Steele dossier is fake news. So apparently he thought we were talking about some sexual fetish. And then he...
Oh, yes. I was told that he thought it was something, you know, there is something called the ovipositor, and it is a sexual toy. And it's perverts use it because it deposits jelly eggs into the body, and it's just, now I do not know why our beerless leader knew about this, other than he was probably trying to protect our children. And so he did, you know, he does his research. He's on Twitter very often. But I mean, jelly eggs those are for Easter. Those are for the Lord. They're not for perverts to put it in their little bang ding dong. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to use such blue language on your family program, boss.
Yes, we are in the dinner hour here, but you've taught me a lot, so I'm going to let that slide for now, because did you have something you needed to say there, Lou?
I was just going to say my sources tell me that he was actually looking forward to being indicted on the Hatch Act, because he actually misunderstood. He thought it was the Snatch Act. So he was
right, and he's already.
So and he was an expert in the Snatch Act. So he eagerly looking forward to that. So.
But he didn't plead guilty, as I understand. What he did do, though, after he corrected himself, he did say that he had been roasting Hatch peppers on the White House lawn, And then this just led to questions about the White House lawn per se, because Melania has been doing some redesigning. I think we have a picture of it. It looks to me like they're building a dam. Excuse me, the blue language is getting contagious here. I almost got carried away, but it looks like a pipeline or something. She just says she's planting doubts in the White House lawn. And you know, Melania is not the only person giving the president trouble. Right now, the president is having trouble with almost everybody around him, in case you haven't noticed. For example, Steve Bannon just got arrested, and this is some really odd case of fraud. He and some others apparently set up a foundation, and they said they were accepting donations from the base to be able to finance a trip to Mars for the big guy, you know, meaning Mr. Steely Dan. And the reason they got arrested, it turns out that after they got all of this money, it turned out that this was for a one-way trip to Mars. So I guess Steve Bannon must still have some sort of a grudge about the way he got treated. And Betsy DeVos, another problem who's just waiting to happen. She's going, you know, people are saying she's not qualified to be running, you know, a Department of Education. So she is going back to repeat 5th grade. Did any significance there? I know I enjoyed 5th grade, but I haven't figured out why, except that her friends on the dance team are also in that 5th grade class.
I think she made the height requirement.
That's right, because otherwise you can't ride the, yeah, I got kicked out of that park myself.
I think she also, 5th grade is the actual peak year for stealing other people's lunch money. So I believe since that part of her personality is to steal things, I mean, that's the reason.
Right, very good. Another problem person, Kellyanne Conway. Now, apparently, she said she's retiring, but we have a story here. I just saw it the other day in the Stun Beaver City Reporter that says she was either fired or she's retiring. And we probably know more about that, huh?
I thought it was just that she was real tired. As a busy mom, I can relate.
Well, look, we've got a memo here. I can't tell you. It's one of my reporters who's not here tonight sent me this memo that she wrote to the big guy. This is Kellyanne talking to the big guy. She understands that he's been digging in on this problem of socialism. And she says, you know, I know you're already working to get rid of the post office, so I'm going to take care of the zoos, the public parks, NASA, garbage collection. In other words, she's just going down this list that sounds like something she got from Bernie Sanders, talking about all of the parts of American government and society that are already socialist. But apparently Trump got upset hearing that they were going to get rid of NASA and the zoo. He has some friends at the zoo, and I think that's why she got the axe. But maybe I'm wrong. But it's not just the people in government. Some of his friends from outside, like the young Falwell, has just been dismissed from the Libertine University. I think they had to pay him a pretty stiff pocket price to get him out of there. Isn't that right, Hank?
Yeah, you know, with the stiff price to get out the taint of Falwell. In fact, I'd like to suggest that today's show be sponsored by the letter T. We're burning up a little here. You can't really see. Aha, here we are. Today's show sponsored by T, as in, taint that Jerry Falwell Jr. in the corner of my eye. No, that's
I'll be darned. And for those of you who don't have a copy of Talk Like Trump, that's a noun. That's what we call a noun. Taint. Right.
Hank, honey, are you okay? Do you need to stop, drop, and roll? It looks like
Well, I mean,
very
no,
serious
I
over
just,
there.
I'm well ventilated as I am, so it's just kind of
Oh,
airy.
good,
It's
good.
very breezy here.
So
Yeah.
people are ostracizing the pool boy, and I want to step outside my journalistic neutrality in his defense. I mean, who among us has not been there, done that to pay their way through college? I mean, I certainly did. I imagine you dabbled in that as well. So
I paid my way through college, but back in those days it was $38. So, you know, a whole lot of people were paying their way, you know. Actually, I think I even tipped the guy another 12 because I just had a 50. But anyway, this question about the younger Falwell, this sponsored some dialogue on the internet. I'm sure you've seen some of these little chat type rooms where people talk about things, and I was fascinated to read about this because they're talking about, well, I've got a picture of the belly button on my own web page and so forth. And then I started doing research. It turns out that on certain social media platforms now, you can't actually show some parts of the body. And since we're in the dinner hour, I'm not going to name all of those parts of the body that you're not supposed to talk about. But one thing that bothered me, a tennis elbow, you can't show that unless it's closed. And if it's closed, how do you know it's a tennis elbow? I mean, unless you've got a tattoo. I mean, I guess they mark them now and number them. No, I thought you guys knew everything, but
Well, I do know you cannot show the uvula now. You cannot show the philodendron, and you cannot show the selenium, which I'm okay with that. You know, the more cover up, the better, in my opinion.
okay. Well, I guess you can't show an athlete's foot either. You know,
Oh,
but
no.
well,
Oh, no. Not before 11 p.m., no.
No, God
not,
forbid you display your mistletoe.
and not until NFL season actually kicks off, because anyway,
the hammer toe is actually considered a lethal weapon by some people, so you're not allowed to show that as well.
are you kidding me?
No.
I mean, sometimes you do, Lou.
I have this from a White House podiatrist firsthand that hammer toes are now considered a lethal weapon.
All right. You know, all right. There are a whole lot of people causing Trump a lot of trouble right now. But one thing that we should not forget is that he causes himself more trouble than any 3 or 4 of his associates put together. Like, I'm sure you're watching the news today, yesterday, that Trump he can't keep his own mouth shut. And so after he talked to Bob Woodward probably 18 or 19 times, a lot of his aides have been complaining in public that they wish that he could keep his mouth taped shut. I mean, mouth taped shut. Anyway, before I leave the Republican convention and we go on to election season, I just want to point out that there was not one word said during that convention about environmental issues. And so one of the principal strategists for the Republicans these days is, of all things, Melvin Giles Jeter. That's going to be the new Gardner. Anyway, he has a book out right now, How to Profit from the Global Warming Hoax. And so, given what the Republicans are saying, he's probably going to make a lot of money. But I understand that he's going to make a lot of money anyway. Does somebody know why that is?
Well, he's also, isn't he also, perhaps Hank can help me out here, is he also writing a book on how to profit from global cooling?
There is one.
He's covered either way. If global warming happens, you can profit, and if global warming doesn't happen, you can profit. So he's
Fascinating.
Really an interesting hedge play.
Very good. Let's talk for a minute here. Let's speed up the process a little bit. We are going into election season, and of course we're going to have some presidential debates. and one of you sent me some notes that looked like they were written on the back of a napkin. I think Hank was able to get that when he was having one of those. He mentioned some of the foods earlier. But I got an even cleaner copy that after they took it off the napkin and sent it to the printer, look at this picture of what they proposed for the presidential debates. There's a gigantic podium there for the current president, along with his seal. And he is proposing to have a trio of Fox News reporters as his questioners for the first debate. I think that would be very interesting. We probably get some really insightful questions from that group, wouldn't we? I think we call that softball where I come from. And after those debates, or even while they're going on, people are going to try to vote by mail this year because we have a pandemic going on. So I have a picture here of the closest mail office to me, the post office down the street. It says that it's closed for remodeling. That's pretty fascinating. But I got sent a picture here that Lou took of the one in his neighborhood, and it's already remodeled down to the ground. In fact, it's bulldozed. Although I'm not sure. Maybe Lou, that's a picture where they're demonstrating how they're going to destroy the suburbs. I'm not sure. In any case,
there was a pilot program for destroying both the suburbs and the post offices. An effort to make that a much more efficient process.
Well, that does look pretty efficient. I mean, there's not much left of either that post office or that polling station or that suburb, whatever it was. But here's the trick. Even if people are able to get around the Trump administration and the Republican Party's refusal to let people vote by mail without proving that they're sick and can't walk, or that they're 98 years old, they're going to send absentee ballots and mail-in ballots not down to the election office where they can be counted. They're going to be counted in outer space. And thanks, Eve, for sending me the story. I had no idea that the people on the International Space Station were trained to review ballots. But apparently they are.
True. They don't really have a whole lot else to do up there.
That's, I guess so. After the first 3 or 4 months, the evenings get kind of old and the jokes have all been told. But
I think Schumer's looking into it, because I think that he's convinced his colleagues in Congress that they should arrest the Postmaster General and perhaps lock away his postmaster privates.
Well, I think they may make a deal, Hank, and they'll just demote the Postmaster General to the Postmaster Colonel, and then they will hope that will sweep it under the rug, and we'll move on to the next news cycle, and there'll be nothing left to tell. That's what my source would say that the future holds.
So, in other words, that
Postmaster specific. It's just
you're talking about a way of stamping him out, is basically. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what.
You kind of draw an envelope around the problem, and then you work your way in from the envelope. That's the way I would like to solve that problem. That's kind of an engineering approach.
That's pretty fascinating, and it's so mechanical. It's not like those microbes that have their own mindset. little microbe joke. Y'all probably wouldn't get that.
Well,
anyway,
I got it right away. Okay.
You are trained, Steve. You are trained in the microbe field, so yes, we would expect.
That's true.
Okay. There's a couple of tech issues going down here right around this time, and this is because the Russian trolls are out there, and I have seen something on their letterhead. I can't seem to find it right now, but it goes overboard to say that they're left-wing partisans and so forth, and then it asks people if they would like to not vote. In any case, it'll only confuse things. But these days, Trump keeps talking about bad apples. And I thought he was talking about the police when he was talking about bad apples, but Apple thinks he was talking about tech giants. So we see a lot of turmoil going on here in the tech world. The latest edition of Tech Goober has something that I was fascinated by. I had no idea that TikTok has put in a bid to buy Microsoft. Now that's a little change in the agenda, isn't it? We could all be dancing to a new kind of software there if that happens. Anyway, that's the tech giants are doing okay, even if they're making changes, and so is the economy. Apparently, the economy is doing okay because there was a story in the Border Wall Street Journal just recently. Let me just give you the headline. You can see it right up there. Millions without jobs or health care are happier than ever before. And I can't explain that. And I've read this whole article and I still can't explain that. So anybody want to explain that, go right ahead. But
it's psychology where if you're told that you're unhappy, the brain actually responds and counteracts that by saying it, convincing itself that it is happy. So
Yeah.
the more unhappy we become, the happier we become.
Yeah, I mean, like my philosophy in the at the center is this is fine.
this is fine, or does that mean you get fines all the time just for teaching what you do?
I mean, citations is how I operate. Citations, sources.
Citations.
Yeah.
And so you can put those up on the wall and frame them like right next to your. I've read it before. I can never remember how that goes, but you are trained in that field, and the field is somewhere out there in the suburbs, right? It's about 22 miles out of town. But like you said, you're not in Esperanto tonight, so that's why the whole thing confuses me. Anyway, one thing that while we're talking about the economy here, the economy certainly includes hair and how hair is treated and shampooed and so forth. And one of the most fascinating stories to come down the pipe in this election season, because it's close to the Speaker of the Horse, you know, we talked a couple of shows ago about how the horses are now beginning to talk. But the Speaker for the Horse, Nancy Pelosi, went to get her hair done, and she apparently got tricked. There was a news story in the Beltway Blabbermouth about it. Pelosi gets tricked, and apparently she took off her mask, and that's because somebody told her, said, "Ma'am, you really need a shave."
I actually talked, boss, to a member of her staff, and then there's another twist on the story where she actually purchased a full day, a full spa day, and part of that involved a facial with a mud mask. So she thought that the mud mask would actually satisfy the masking requirements of San Francisco.
I don't see why not. It's full of microbes, and they're all intelligent.
And Eve can speak to that. They're probably beneficial microbes in the mud mask, I would assume. Is that in fact the case?
Eve, is that a fact?
I would say that's a fact. I suppose that's a fact. Yeah.
That's very good. See, now you have it on authority, if we want to call that authority. Anyway, while we're talking about hair, the president himself got things going in the hair market with a little comment he made recently about, shower heads and how his wasn't working perfectly for his perfect hair. That led to the introduction of a product. I had to run out and buy one right now. You've probably seen it, right? You know, it advertises perfect hair every time. Perfect hair every time. I imagine everybody here has one now. Yeah, that's what I thought.
I love it. It smelled a bit funny out of the box, though. It seemed to, I mean, I thought maybe I had a problem with my plumbing, but it smelled like someone was going potty. But it did, as you can see, it made my hair quite lovely. So
Oh, that's
I would assume that any
Yeah.
box with the name Trump on it probably smells funny.
yeah.
I had
Well,
trouble with it because the installation manual was actually written in Russian. So I had to get that translated in order to learn how to install it.
well, you can just get that on Facebook, although it will run up your temperature score. But a product I really enjoyed, I went and I got one of the Mr. Bobbleheads. It's a Mr. Shower Head. These come in several sizes. I got one for my dog also. He's not like Telsa's dog. Telsa's dog can talk and everything. My dog just wanted one because he saw it on TV or he saw it on Facebook. I don't know what they watch these days when I'm not at home. But they're making an app now. I got the Locate app. Have you seen that? Not only if you lose your shower head somewhere, you can just get this app and go find it. And not only that, if you say you lost your asparagus, then you just click the button and you can find your asparagus. Or, I mean, you can find, I don't have a duck suit, but it'll.
Yeah, well, I went for the Mr. Asparagus head. It comes with the little mustache and the funny Mickey Mouse arms, and it's actually quite nice on a warm, lonely evening.
Does it?
Yeah.
If you lose your moral compass, will it find your moral compass for you? Perhaps we could get this out in the White House.
I tried it and it kept going back to the White House, and I said that is not I don't think that's the moral compass.
No,
so I'm not sure that works.
Beta version, which is in engineering terms, beta is Greek for still doesn't work. So
yeah, I think you're right there. Anyway, what's amazing about this, because this has been kind of a surging thing in the economy, all of these shower head related products, and then come to find out, and this is in the regulatory nightmare news. You may have seen this. Apparently, and this also says that car crashes are linked to bad driving habits. I'll have to read that later. But it says here that they are reporting a surge in showerhead accidents. Now, I don't know if you guys had any experience, but I'll tell you what. I had this roommate in college. We were in a fraternity, and we lived in a pretty cheap rent house. Okay, I'll say that. And the electricity didn't always work reliably. Sometimes we'd think it was out and then it would come back on. So one night, I can't see what, I see what he's saying there. One night, a friend of mine, he was using the shower head as a blender, because we couldn't afford a blender also. And when the electricity went out, he thought it wasn't working anymore. And the darn thing came on. And because he had some soy milk in there, it just electrified both of us.
Wow.
And anyway, so I've been wanting to tell that story about a showerhead accident for years, and I never
I'm glad you did. I was a little afraid at the end there. I kind of thought where you were going was showerhead accident like that might require a step stool and good lubricant.
I can confirm the OSHA, with the pandemic, showerhead accidents are going up, and it seems with the isolation, it seems to be a lot of women are having showerhead accidents. And there's an epidemic of injured uvulas in the U.S. that goes along with this pandemic.
I'll be dead gum.
Well, I'm just glad you just taught us the dangers of soy milk, because I think it's an awful thing and it needs to be banned.
Well, it's pretty good as aviation fuel. I'm just saying you shouldn't, cook with it, and as far as it goes, it'll probably kill microbes. So let me just tell you something. Because of this, I started researching that OSHA is proposing a bunch of classification revisions. And what is the subject? Rocket science. Because in my mind, working with a shower head, you know, it's not rocket science, but I was surprised to find out how many things are and are not rocket science. For example, look at this section here on plumbing. I think y'all have probably read it. It says that plumbing, you know, has some of these very arcane kind of rules and so forth. So it says that with some exceptions, and they're under a different section, that plumbing is still considered rocket science. You probably knew that, Lou. You used to be a plumber back before you were on horseback.
Going back to my days in the Nixon White House, I was one of the White House plumbers. So yes,
Right. And then here's another one, section 28.2 on library shelving. You know why that's rocket science? A lot of people don't know what letter comes next in the alphabet, and even fewer people know how to use the Dewey Decimal System. Fascinating. That's why that's rocket science.
And
Well,
also
about
shelving. I mean, have you ever been to IKEA? Have you ever tried to put together those shelves? I mean, it's rocket science. And they're blocking.
yeah, that's I didn't get to that page yet, but I think you're right. What fascinated me, playing the bass guitar, that used to be considered rocket science. Not anymore. Anybody can do that. In fact, Tesla's dog can do that. And my dog is working on it. He can't do it yet. And finally, this one really gets to me. Gaslighting. Gaslighting used to be considered rocket science. You know what it's considered now? It's considered an art, not a science. It's an art because there aren't any rules. There aren't any rules, but everybody here knows that we've been playing without rules for a long time. In fact, we've been playing without even a deck of cards that has all 4 of the jokers. Or how many is it, 2? I forget, because none of our decks have jokers anymore. And that's rocket science.
They've all been moved to the White House. So there's
Oh, that's why. Yeah, I remember now. Anyway, that's why we came to talk to you about things tonight, because you hear it better when we tell you, when we get into the nitty and the gritty. And those are 2 separate things. My investigators come up with the real dirt. And I'm not talking just about, soil mechanics here or microbes that we know by their first names. I'm saying we know all of you by your first name because we have an arrangement with Facebook, and it says that the temperature goes up, we can do whatever we want. We'll see you again soon.